tub running, now that you have the tub running, you get to play with the controls. The controls are very intuitive. It's very similar to a smartphone where it's a touch screen. It's not as sensitive as a smartphone in that it's not going to be just a simple touch to do things because it doesn't quite sense the heat. It's got a separate layer in there. So you actually need to apply a little bit of pressure to the buttons to get them to actually do something. I'll go over the basic controls on the top here, and then I'll get a little bit more in depth on each individual control. You've got the time on the top up here. You've got a control here, or a couple arrows in a circle on the side here, and what that does is that actually inverts the control whether you're inside or outside of the spa. So if you're inside the tub, you can look at it inside. If you're outside of the tub, you simply just turn it around and you can control it from the outside of the tub as well. Your temperature shows pretty clearly right in the center of the display. Currently this tub is at 100 degrees and the set temperature is at 100 degrees, and I just moved it up to 101, as you can see, and the little heater came on to heat it up to 101. It'll go back to the set temperature, the actual temperature of the water, if you don't touch it for a second or two. So in this case, if you wanted to go up, you would go up, and the max temperature is going to be 104. If you want it cooler, of course, you would just hit the down arrow and it would go down. And that's the way that you would control the temperature on the hot tub. Typical water temperature is somewhere around 100 degrees. Most people anywhere from 100 to 104. You get to choose that. That's the fun part. Beyond that, once you set the temperature, you've got 4 other controls or 4 other buttons on the main overlay. One of them is going to be for the light. Whenever you turn the light on, it's going to turn the light on. With the LED lights on all of our models, it's rotating functions on the lights, and every time you turn the light off and you turn the light back on, it'll rotate to the next stage. Some of the colors are stagnant, so you can have just blue or just green or just red, and some of them rotate, so it'll go from blue to green to red to purple to yellow, etc. The other function that you have is the jet function. That's the one that you're probably going to be using the most. You're going to hit the jet button, and that actually takes you into a sub-menu of jet buttons. You've got the circulation pump that is always running, constant. You'll either have jet 1 or jet 1 and jet 2. The way that these operate is if you hit it once, you'll get low speed. If you hit it a second time, you'll get high speed. And if you hit it a third time, it'll turn the jet pump off. It operates the same for jet pump 1 and the same for jet pump 2. So low speed, high speed, off. There's a stir button down below jet 1, and what the stir button is designed to do, as we spoke about in the chemicals of the startup, is it will turn the jet pumps on for around 3 minutes, give or take a little bit, around 3 minutes, and then shut off. Anytime you add the dichlor whenever you get out of the hot tub, anytime you add the pH and alkalinity adjusters, anytime you add any chemical to the hot tub, it's always a good idea to hit that stir button, because it'll circulate everything through the entire body of water, through the lines, through the jet pumps everywhere, and it'll affect the entire body of water, not just sink to the bottom and dissipate over time. So you've got a jet button, jet 2 button, if you have a jet 2, the stir button, and then the circulation button, which will always be going. Anytime you're in a sub-menu or a second menu, you'll see in the top corner here, in the top left corner, you will have a back arrow, and that will simply get you back to the previous home menu. Whenever you're at the previous home menu again, we've got the light button, the jet button. There's an optional button down here in the bottom left corner that would take you to the music player section. If your Wind River Spa is equipped with the Wind River audio system, this will be activated and you will be able to use it. If you do not have the audio system, it doesn't do anything. You won't be able to get in there, you won't be able to press it, it won't do anything. It is a non-existent button. The only last button on here that we have is the settings button. Inside the settings button, you've actually got a few different sub-menus that you can get into. On the main level here, you've got heat. If you go into the heat, you're going to have the heat mode is ready and the temperature range is high. It should always be that. You should never change it. This is a menu that you don't need to change anything in, but just so you know it's there. You've got the time is the second one. The time you simply set by touching the time, and you can go up or down on the time. For the hour, you can do the same thing with the minutes, and once you have it, you would click the check button, and that gets you to the time of the day. The next button that you have is the hold button. I did speak about the hold button in the startup, where if you hit the hold button, What that does, well, that will actually shut down the system for 60 minutes. You have 60 minutes without anything running on the hot tub. So if you wanted to do a filter clean or do some general maintenance to the hot tub, like cleaning out the waterfall or something other than that, you're certainly more than welcome to do that. You don't use the hold for draining the hot tub or anything else. It's simply used for the basic, if you just need anything less than 60 minutes. On the main screen, you have these 6 different options. You'll notice at the bottom, you've got the arrow that will take you to the second set. There's a units button, which you've got a temperature display. You can choose to look at Fahrenheit or Celsius. The last option that you have on here is the utilities button, and the utilities button will get you to 3 other options here. You have a panel option, a faults option, and a GFCI test button on there as well. The panel button is a relatively important one, really the only one in here that you'll care about. And what that does is that actually sets the default light on the control itself. So what that means, it's asleep after 1 minute in this case, and that's the actual light on this panel. So if I was to not touch anything for 1 minute, this panel itself will go into a sleep mode and the light will shut off. If you want it longer than that, you can always increase it. I believe the highest that it goes to is 30 minutes, and you can set it to whatever you want and hit the check button, and then it will go into whatever mode you want it to. So now in this case, 12 minutes later, this light will shut off. Most people, however, especially if you're out there at night hanging out in the hot tub, probably don't want the extra lights. 60 minutes, as a matter of fact, is the highest that it goes to. So 60 minutes is going to be the highest it goes to. 1 minute is the lowest that it goes to. You would check it right there, and I believe that that's also the default setting on it now. So after 1 minute, it'll shut off and it'll just go black, and then you have peace and quiet. The second one that you have on here is the faults. This is simply just a log. Don't necessarily care about what it has to say. This is just going to be different programming codes or different faults that it goes into anytime that you put it in the hold pattern and such like that, if you had any error codes come on there as far as flow and such related as well. The last one that you have is a GFCI test. If you wanted to test the GFI itself, this will actually simulate a bad GFCI, and you can hit the test button on there, and that should, if your GFCI was wired correctly and your electrician did a good job, it will actually trip the GFCI, and then you would have to go reset the breaker. I'm going to choose not to at this point. One of the most important things with this control is that there's only a small handful of things that you really need to set. All you're really setting is the temperature itself. If you want the temperature hotter, turn the temperature up. If you want the temperature cooler, turn the temperature down. You're going to be setting the temperature, you're going to be turning the light on and off, and you're going to be turning the jets on and off. You're going to be setting the temperature, you're going to be turning the light on and off, and you're going to be turning the jets on and off individually, as well as using the stir button. Beyond that, there's really nothing in the settings unless you wanted to set the time, or you wanted to use the hold button, or you wanted to see Celsius, something along those lines. It's very basic, but there's really nothing that you have to do in any of those menus.